Hey y'all, it's me Kim. I am back with another chit chat get ready with me video. So it's been a few days, longer than I normally go without making a video. Where have I been? So last week was International Women's Day, so I had a speaking gig. I spoke at the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. Let me just tell y'all, I say this all the time, I freaking love the South. Invite me anywhere in the South, I will go. I will love it. I love Charleston, South Carolina. It reminded me of New Orleans a little bit. It just reminded me of everywhere that I love in the South. Love it. Love it. Had a wonderful time there. Everybody was great. I met some patrons. Love you guys so much. I had so much fun. I've also been dealing with the Michael Jackson people. So I published a video last week about Finding Neverland and my feelings on Finding Neverland, and I was very honest, and I think that Michael Jackson molested children. I do believe that, and I believe that because that is the conclusion that makes the most sense. It just makes the most sense in my brain. It has been nuts to me, like crazy and scary, the level of attacks that I've gotten from pro Michael Jackson people. I mean, people who have found my email address, people who found my home address. It is on another level, truly. So, you know, look, we don't have to agree, but the harassment is nuts. It's crazy. So yeah, I've been dealing with that. So today, what did I want to talk about? I decided I just wanted to talk about Terry Crews. So Terry Crews has, you know, I am a big Terry Crews fan, as we all know, because of the way that he's been so forceful in talking about his, you know, sexual assault and aligning himself with Me Too, despite the fact that, like, anybody who pays attention knew what kind of blowback he was going to get as a black man who decided to align himself with Me Too. I appreciate him for speaking out so forcefully against toxic masculinity. And recently, Terry Crews has gotten into a couple of different little brouhahas, shall we say, over things that he has said on the internet. And most recently, he got a lot of pushback for saying that, you know, children need to have fathers. Children need to have fathers. And, you know, Terry Crews is a 50-year-old black man who says things like a 50-year-old black man would say them. And I don't think that he expressed himself well at all with regard to that. But, you know, recently my mind on this has changed a little bit. Am I with Terry Crews and saying, you know, kids without fathers are like a boat without a rudder or whatever? No, I don't believe that. But as I have matured and also read more of the research and what we know about children and child development, I am not as dismissive of the need for father figures, not necessarily a father, because it's 2019. Trans people can have children, lesbian couples can have children, but certainly the need for male figures in children's lives, particularly if they are boys. Now, why do I say that? So I am not on that Terry Crews, like, if a child doesn't have a father or a father figure, they're doomed. I'm not on that, and I also think that Crews's ideology behind it is probably super patriarchal and wrong. However, my mind has changed on this for a couple of reasons. So for a long time, I was very much, and my ideas about gender are shifting too. So for a long time, a lot of my feminism was rooted in the idea that, like, gender is a complete fiction, gender doesn't matter, we are all just performing all the time. But actually what has made my idea about gender shift is actually embracing trans experiences and trans identity, right? So if you are a person who is born with genitalia that looks male and you're a woman, a girl, or a female, that means that there is something not just completely made up about gender. So do I know for sure, like, are girl brains different from boy brains? The research that we have says no. But if there is no difference in the biological or innate characteristics of gender, then how is it possible to be trans? Do you know what I'm saying? How is it possible to be born with genitalia that looks male and know inherently that you're a woman if there's no difference? So there's got to be something different. There's got to be. Now, I don't know exactly what it is. I think that we're still kind of trying to process, like, what does that mean? But I am no longer in the camp that it's all just completely made up. We shouldn't care about it at all. I think there's something there. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I believe that representation matters. I know that in my life as a woman, I am the type of woman I am because of the type of women that I was exposed to. You know, I always say all the time that my mom is not a feminist, and she probably ain't never gonna be a feminist, but she was certainly the type of woman who transgressed certain gender roles. She is an engineer, and she was always very well paid, and she could fix things, and she knew about tech, and I mean, we never did any sports stuff. Like, that's like the one gender thing that we very much adhered to in my home. Wasn't nobody into sports until my mom got older and she decided that she loves basketball. She's like a weird, crazy basketball person, and me and my sister are like, where did this come from? We grew up in a sportsless home. But anyways, so I know it's probably much easier for me to minimize the importance of male figures because I'm a woman and I grew up with wonderful, dynamic women figures. Black women figures at that. And that was really, really helpful to me. I don't know what it is like to be a boy and be trying to figure out boyhood and not have any other people around you who have experienced boyhood. Because boyhood, black boyhood, is different from black girlhood in material ways. So, do I think that parents of any gender can love their children and nurture them and set them up with a firm emotional foundation? Yes. But I am sure that I, as a black woman who has only experienced black girlhood and not a trans experience and not black boyhood and not a non-binary experience, that I cannot tell you what that's about. I know for sure. And also I can say, as a person who grew up primarily with my mother, that there are, you know, experiences in being socialized with the opposite, with a different gender that I definitely did not have as a child, that probably would be very useful for me as an adult. Right? It probably would be extremely, extremely useful as an adult to have had some more socialization with men. Because it does, you know, I don't think that I have daddy issues, because that's sexist and wrong, and I know just as many men with issues with women, probably more men that have issues with women. But it probably would have helped me navigate some stuff, right? I probably, if I had spent more time around my dad, who was not absent, he just wasn't in the home, I probably would have had more time to figure out some of my issues, intimacy issues with men, probably. I think that would have been helpful. You know, also in talking to men who did not grow up with fathers in the home, you know, I can't discount their experiences. You know, I know what it's like to be a girl and raised like in wonderful, supportive and loving black womanhood and black girlness. But I cannot imagine what it's like to be a boy and you are dealing with your penis and you're dealing with the masturbation and the jacking off and the sexuality and all of that stuff, and you're dealing with the police, and you know, the consequences of blackness are different for girls and boys in school and everywhere else. And like, yeah, you probably want somebody who can talk to you about that shit. Probably. I mean, you know, now look, I grew up with black women who, you know, weren't really super open and talking about all, so, you know, I needed somebody to talk about black girlhood and black womanhood with, but at the top line level, they gave me the kinds of representational models that I needed. And I don't think that we can spend so much time talking about representation matters. You know, we need to see more people on screen and diversify and all of that. I don't think that it's possible. It doesn't make sense to me that we can spend so much time going up for Black Panther and Marvel and all that, and then say that representation in your home or in your community doesn't matter. I think it does matter. When I see adults talking about, you know, the incredible difference Black Panther has made in their lives, I can't help but think, oh, well, kids must be feeling the same way. Particularly when they're trying to navigate all this stuff. And by the way, I don't think that the representation thing is just about fathers. I think that if you have a trans kid, then it's probably very, very important to have a trans person, a trans adult in your child's life. Because that's just an experience that you will never have. That's a model that you can never be. So I'm a grown person and I'm out here looking for models and looking for representation and what does her body look like and what is her skin tone and all that. But if I was a kid, and I know that even as a kid, it was 10 times more important. Okay, I'm back. So anyways, it just didn't make sense for me to be out here saying, representation matters, where are the dark-skinned black girls, where are the dark-skinned black women, Lupita, Gabrielle Union, and then say that gender is inconsequential. It's not. Gender affects how you move through the world. It affects how you are perceived. And of course, when I say, you know, men, I don't just mean any kind of man. I think no man is better than a raggedy, toxic man, particularly for boys. And that is how, and that's how that ideology for me has evolved. Now, not only do we have the models thing, but also, you know, I care about data. The research that we have on gender and children and child rearing indicates that boy children do actually need men in their lives. Not necessarily in their homes, but like there's even a study that I saw that said that like boys, black boy kid children who even just have more men in their communities fare better in life. So it's not even about, do you have a man in your home? It's like, can you walk down the street and see a man? That makes sense to me. That makes sense based on my own experiences. It makes sense based on what we see in the data. It just makes sense based on the other representational things that we talk about. Now, representation is not everything. And I am still trying to work through how to care about representation without essentializing, right? So like, how do I say I care that these spaces are not all black, but also acknowledge that like all black people are not the same. I don't agree with all black people. You know, some of us are horrible and toxic. Like, how do we balance that kind of stuff? I think it's TBD. And I don't know if we've done a great job in trying to navigate through it. But yeah, I think that what Terry Crews said was just so poorly worded. Just really poorly worded. And also, I have to say that I think that gender matters, but like patriarchy is also not going to save us. Like, patriarchy is also not going to magically lift black people out of poverty. It's not going to eradicate some of the most violent forces in black life and black communities. And some of those most violent forces are misogyny, rape culture, sexism. So like, yeah, like I do think that it's important to have men and male figures, but like they can't be raggedy. I think that's like an important thing. I think unfortunately so many, you know, of these men are out here just raggedy, and they're models for their sons, but are they the kind of models that we need? If you're gonna be out here being a model for toxic masculinity, then I need you to stay home, stay away. But if you're going to be a model for a healthy, productive black manhood, because look, we're not getting rid of black men anytime soon. It's not gonna happen. So we need for kids to figure out, we need for black girls to figure out a healthy, workable model of black girlhood. We need black boys to figure out a healthy, workable model of black boyhood and black manhood. We need black trans people, black gay folks, black non-binary people to find healthy models of what they are and what they hope to be. And we shouldn't, now I'm at a point in saying that we shouldn't minimize. So for a long time I felt like it was important to minimize the role of black men in black communities because, you know, despite the fact that black men are so absent in so many factors of black life and black community, we still, in black communities, operate under a patriarchy where we put men first and we prioritize their needs and we say that they're the most important. They are not the most important. Their needs should not be prioritized. We do need to pay more attention to the lives and lived experiences of black girls and black trans people and black non-binary folks. All of it matters, and that's like a really huge thing, and I'm still kind of trying to work through, particularly when it comes to trans experiences, what is biological, what isn't biological, what is innate, what is socialized. I think a great thing that the mainstreaming of trans folks into our lives and into our discussions of social justice and equality is like, we really have to rethink all of these things that we assumed to be true. You know, there's lots of things about gender that I just assumed to be true, and trans folks and non-binary folks come in and they just fuck all that stuff up. And most people are they are resistant to it because like so much of our identities are rooted in, you know, reinforcing the gender binary and reinforcing these very narrow ideas about gender. But for me, I kind of feel like that's exciting because now we're opening up even more new possibilities, you know? If gender isn't what we've been told it is, that means it's something different. That means that we're still learning and growing, and anybody who has ever felt maybe limited by the gender binary, limited by the gender roles that we've been told, you get even more of an opportunity now to figure some new shit out. And while we're figuring that new shit out, we can make life less horrible for the people who have never been able to fit into the old shit. I think that that is great and it's exciting. And we don't need, you know, the old ways of, you know, the My Brother's Keeper and all of that stuff, you know, the way that men have been able, the old ways that men have been trying to assert their importance in black communities are just really tired and played out. I think that's one of the reasons why people are so resistant, is because I think that mutuality is important. You know, we all come together to complement each other. But the old ways of men trying to, you know, assert their importance in black communities is, I matter, let me go first. Well, no, I think you do matter. But that doesn't mean you automatically get to go first. It doesn't mean that you automatically get to take up the most space. No, right? Like, I'm not giving that to you. But what I can give you is equal time. We can share. And I think the real conflict is in the fact that, like, people don't want to share. I feel like that's, like, the real deal, is men who have grown up feeling themselves to be, you know, aggrieved and marginalized and sidelined. What they want now, they feel like their justice is domination. Now look, I can give it to you that you matter, that we want you in our communities, that it's not fair to say that you don't matter, or that your voice doesn't count, or that you shouldn't be heard. I can give you that. But what I'm not going to give you is an automatic assumption that you are the most fit to lead. That remains to be seen. What I'm not going to give you is an assumption that you need to come first in order to prove some kind of cosmic point. Don't believe that to be true either. But what I can give you is time and space to work through your shit. And also, the other thing about what is troubling about, you know, what Terry Crews is often saying is, and why there's probably so much pushback, is when we're talking about the necessity of men in the lives of children, what type of men are we talking about? And that's the reason why I can't automatically get on board with what Terry Crews is saying, because I have not asked him. But generally, we can assume that when folks are talking about we need black men to come up and stand up and be tall, they're talking about cisgender, straight black men, or, you know, middle class and or above black men, you know, respectable black men. They're not talking about black men of varied gender presentations, you know, feminine to masculine. They're not talking about queer black men. They're not talking about, I don't know, black men who don't fit into the mold of, like, perfectly respectable or whatever. And, like, that deserves to be interrogated. And, like, when Barack Obama gets so much shit for, you know, I don't think My Brother's Keeper in and of itself is, like, if the idea is just, let's get black men to help black boys, that's one thing. But it becomes a problem when we try to force all of this, pile on all this other stuff. So when Barack Obama is at a My Brother's Keeper summit and he's making it very clear that he only values a certain kind of black manhood, a certain kind of class presentation, that's when people are going to be pushing back and saying, well, it's not just that you want to help people and give people mentors or whatever. It's that in your own way, you're teaching these really toxic lessons. We don't need more of that. We get that. We've done enough of that. So when I say that, like, yeah, I'm open to the idea that, like, men matter. Is that a radical thought, that men matter? Maybe it is. But we got to open that up to different kinds of men. We can only say, and if you can only say men matter while trying to minimize the contributions of women or trans folks, then you don't matter. You're not a man who matters if you are homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic, rapey. No, you don't matter. I will say that at my alma mater right now, there's a big, oh shoot, how did I get it out? You have to work really hard to get lip gloss outside the lines. So at my alma mater right now, there's a big brouhaha, I've said that twice in this video, about a resident dean of students. So basically he lives in an undergraduate house. A house is like a house like Harry Potter. That's what happens at Harvard. And he oversees the whole house, and he has decided to join Harvey Weinstein's legal team. And baby, there is a huge falling out about that. And initially, I was like, well, look, we live in the United States, and in the United States, people are entitled to representation. That was my initial thought. And I just thought, well, you know, and maybe he just wants to take some money. Capitalism won't save us, but I generally try not to get in the way of people's bags. So if you want those Harvey Weinstein checks, I'm sure he's paying lots and lots of money. Okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, do whatever. But since it was first announced that he was going to be working with Weinstein, the way that this man has been talking, it's been so horrible. So right now, like, I mean, he said there's another black male professor at Harvard who has been accused of sexual misconduct, and the stuff that he said in support of Roland Fryer, who is the accused, and now the fact that he is taking up for Weinstein and his public statements about it have just been bad. Like, I believe that he has to go. I think that it is perfectly reasonable for the students to say, look, you don't have to, you're choosing to do this. You're choosing to take up for this man who has allegedly violated dozens of women. You don't have to do that. Now, I don't know if it's the money or whatever, but not only that, when you make public statements minimizing the concern, when you make public statements like even insinuating that women who report rape are lying, you are responsible for this kind of discreet community of undergraduate students, and they have to say that they can trust you. And I absolutely understand now. You know, I was resistant because I do think, like, okay, you guys, we can't be trying to blackball everybody, but now I completely understand that, you know, children need to feel safe in your care. I don't know, children, 18 is not technically a child, but to me it's a child because I'm 30. But like, you're abdicating your responsibility to create an environment where kids feel safe and welcome. And so that's a really interesting story. Anyways, his name is Ronald, there's a Q&A with him in the New Yorker. It's Ronald Sullivan. Ronald Sullivan, look up that story. It's super interesting. I do think that it brings lots of interesting ideas about justice and who deserves representation and what do we do. You know, I think Harvey Weinstein is guilty. I think we're pretty clear on that. But in our legal system, the crooked, corrupt legal system that we have, he is entitled to a defense. So what do we do with that? I don't know. It's complicated, but I also definitely stand with the groups on campus who are saying, you got to go. You can represent this man, sure, but you can't have this job and that job. You got to choose one job. So I think that, and also it's significant because he and his wife were the first black resident deans at Harvard. Like, that's a really big deal, you guys. Like, it's a big deal. So then it puts us in another situation of like, oh my God, now we gotta rise up against a black man because he not doing right. It's like, please, like, stop it. Why do we always have to be in this position? So anyways, that's all I have to say about that. I think that my makeup looks pretty bad, but I have to hurry up. I'm getting a colonoscopy tomorrow, you guys, and I have to get through this so that I can do my colonoscopy prep. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to Healthy Colons. Watch the next video. It's gonna be on Solange. I finally got around to reviewing Solange's When I Get Home. So that's up on YouTube now. Bye. See you later.